Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about what I believe are the 5 coldest zodiac signs, and this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Now I'm going to go with Capricorn at the #1 spot. I'd say Capricorn unequivocally is the coldest of the zodiac signs, being ruled by Saturn, of course, a very cold planet. Capricorn, can often be very cold, callous, and undemonstrative. They are, in a negative manifestation. Capricorn can be about ruthless ambition. Most of them are not at that point, but Capricorn does have, tremendous difficulty in, the emotional expression. They are, the opposite sign of Cancer. They are the antithesis of Cancer. There's a reason why Capricorn and Cancer are opposite zodiac signs. And the thing about Capricorn is that they are very inhibited, very restrained in terms of expressing their feelings to others. A lot of this is I think a lot of it's attributed to Capricorn being very dominated by their career, their business, their livelihood. And it's not to say stereotype by any means that all Capricorns are callous, cold, and undemonstrative. You have to factor in a number of other things in the chart. The astrology chart is very intricate, of course. A Capricorn that's got Sun in Capricorn that's got a Cancer ascendant, naturally is going to have a lot more, outward emotional expression than the typical, Capricorn Sun. So you have to really look at a lot of other different elements, and of course this is just a general and generic video regarding the 5, what I believe, in my opinion, are the 5 coldest zodiac signs. So all those, that has to be taken. Other elements in the chart have to be taken into consideration. But Capricorn is really, again, they have such difficulty in general, with the expression of their feelings, and they are really often about their authority. They do well in like management, authoritative positions. They don't realize, they may not even realize themselves that they're how that affects other people. Sometimes they're being overly authoritative. They might have a position in their life where they're in a management or a position of authority, and it might come out just in their general dealings with others, like when they're at home, and they might act that way toward their family members. And I had one person I worked with. He was a Sun in Capricorn, and this is a very extreme case, and most Capricorns are not that extreme in the what I call the cold department. But there was one time when somebody, I believe, got electrocuted. There was a trucker. Somebody got electrocuted in the at the Kmart I worked at, right? And the Sun in Capricorn man just kind of said, we need to move the guy was laying on the ground, and I guess he may have been unconscious, the man that was electrocuted. He said, we need to move him, we got work to do here. And that, of course, is like a Capricorn person in a very, very negative expression, and most Capricorns are not at that cold level, but in some extreme cases you might see some that can be like that. But anyway, now the next sign I want to get to, #2, I'll put Aquarius there. They're ruled by Saturn as well, but they're also ruled by Uranus. And Aquarius is just a little bit behind Capricorn, because Aquarius, does have certain sympathetic urges, because they are humanitarians, can be very selfless. But Aquarius can often be very cool. They're aloof and detached. They're not ones that generally fare well in terms of emotional connections. Aquarius is very paradoxical, actually. They're like that universal friend. They make their friends very easily and acquaintances quickly, but they're ones that aren't really about deep connections. It's interesting. There's an you might have heard of this actor named Richard Dean Anderson, who's an Aquarius Sun and Gemini rising. And my it was my grandmother that had told me about him one time, and she said, I guess it was in an article or something, she saw that he was someone that was very difficult person to really get to know. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is attributed to his having Aquarius Sun and Gemini rising. And don't get me wrong, Aquarians often have, the humanitarian instincts, as I was stating before. They're often innovators. They help others, inspire others, and propel them toward their future. Some of you may remember there was a prolific NFL quarterback named Steve McNair. He had his son in Aquarius, and he was involved in doing things, humanitarian nature. He may have done something for those Hurricane Katrina victims. You might want to confer that on the internet. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe he was involved in a lot of selfless acts. And Aquarius will often do those kind of things for others. They will often stand up for their friends. They're often very they can excel being a human rights advocate, but they don't always excel. Might even excel in word perfect. Now I'm being flippant about that, but anyway, they might also but excelling in the emotional, the depth of the emotions and the feelings, and being able to really truly understand people in terms of their feelings, and having real strong sensitivity toward them. They're not generally about that. And again, I'll put Aquarius at number 2 as far as the 5 coldest zodiac signs go, in my opinion. Now, the next sign I want to talk about is Gemini. Now, Gemini, is ruled by Mercury, and they're dominated by intellect, and the feelings of Gemini can be very they can be superficial. They had somebody made a joke about Moon in Gemini, more specifically Moon in Gemini one time, and it was a guy looking. They said it's something about looking for the emotional core in the Moon in Gemini, and it had a guy with his head down looking in an empty box. Now that's a little might be a little distorted or exaggerated. Gemini still can have feelings. Moon and Gemini can have manifold feelings, but they're not, they're generally not going to be overly sustained. And Gemini, similar to Aquarius, what it is, Aquarius don't want to be tied into a connection, a deep connection with someone, largely attributed to that strong need for freedom and independence. And Gemini is just simply about, not wanting to be tied down, and I think a lot of it is attributed to the fact they feel life might become boring, might become monotonous if they get connected with somebody for too long, and they don't have often the emotional means to be connected in a relationship that's because that's just not what they're generally about. They're Gemini, again, they don't want to be tied down. Like the expression Gemini don't want to be pinned down. And again, it's because it can take them away from their variety in their life. Gemini will, if they have to get away from their variety, life can become very mundane in their minds, very monotonous. Some of you may remember NFL quarterback Joe Namath. I think it took him he was a Sun in Gemini, and he was someone, and it took him some time, I think, to get married. And I don't know 100% if he did or not, but I believe it did take him some time, and that's something they want to confer on the internet. I'm not 100% sure on it, but I do believe it was some time before he got married and had a real sustained connection with the marriage partner. But and again, that's something you want to check on. But even if that's not true, I would still, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case with him. He struck me as someone that was like a playboy for for a good part of his life. But anyway, Now, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now, number 4, I'm going to choose Aries because, well, Aries is not exactly known to have an abundance of sympathy. They're often, they're outspoken. Their angry outbursts and outspokenness. They may not even care if someone's feelings get hurt by it. They're often more concerned with just being so direct and forthright. It's to the point where they don't consider the human element where somebody might get hurt or not. Aries can simply have an anathema to weakness, and they may despise weakness. Gemini may see emotions as a weakness, but Aries just they get angry over people that might seem overly passive and weak to them. They may, and that could include people that cry easily, and they don't really have that. It's not that Aries can't express any kind of emotions or feeling. Aries will often express anger. That is what they're notorious for expressing, but they're not ones to really get into the strong emotional, the feelings of other people. They are so often just wanting to start new things. Aries is often very pioneering. They're about initiative and enterprise, and they're so busy just trying to start, initiate so many different things that they're not really about expressing their strong emotions or feelings toward others. Now, don't get me wrong, Aries will often stand up for others, where a lot of other people will not do so. But other people don't have the courage and fortitude that Aries has, but they will often stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves. That includes the passive, the weaker people, and or at least perceived weaker and passive. But anyway, but it's just, to me, I mean, Aries is not one to be one of the warmer zodiac signs. Yeah, they're warm, they're a fire sign, but they're not about the expression in terms of empathy, warmth is what I'm saying. Often the zodiac sign Pisces will fall on the 12th house cusp in the solar natal chart for Aries, and Pisces is connected, with compassion and empathy, and that's on the 12th house. Often falls on the 12th house cusp of restrictions for Aries, and there's a reason for that in the solar natal chart for Aries. Anyway, now last but not least, I'm going to choose Virgo as the fifth coldest of the zodiac signs. Virgo, they're similar to Gemini because they are ruled by Mercury. I see Virgo as that more analytical version of Gemini. They are dominated by intellect. They will often, sadly, you see some Virgos in a very negative manifestation where their criticism, their derisive remarks may hurt others, and they may not always worry about. I mean, they worry a lot in general, but they may not worry so much about what that person was hurt or not. Now, I don't have them at the top of this list, near the top of the list, because Virgo is often very service oriented and helpful, and you got to factor that in when you're helpful and service oriented. You're a person that shows certain care for other people. Virgo often makes a very good subordinate worker because they are about the service to others. I had a friend of mine, going back to Kmart again, friend of mine that has a Virgo ascendant, and he just went all out one time when he was something happened when we were pushing like a forklift or something, I don't know what, pallet jack I think it was, and it stopped moving for some reason, and he actually got down on his hands and knees and was trying to examine what was actually wrong with it when no one else was actually going to do that. And Virgo often go the extra mile to help others. So but Virgo is not exactly about having a surfeit or abundance of emotions or feelings. They are Mercury ruled. They're dominated by intellect. They're more about, focusing on analytics, diagnosing, analyzing things, as opposed to actually, expressing the true warmth or feelings toward other people. And I just, that's why I got Virgo, on this list at number 5. And again, people just remember that it's not all, this is not about stereotyping and saying, all these signs that I mentioned are like this constantly, or every single person that has, these signs prominent in their horoscope are going to act this way all the time, because there's other things in the chart that can offset it, such as having like a water ascendant, or water moon in a water sign, or even the moon in the first house, as some examples. And even Jupiter, say if Jupiter conjoins one's moon, that can enlarge a lot emotional energy and feelings. So those are, there's a lot of things to look at in the chart. Someone could have a water dominant chart, and it could offset, to some degree. Somebody say has a even a Capricorn ascendant. So you got to look at, as some examples. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Martin saying stay well.